yarn comes in different kinds of packagings, and some of them are ready to go right off their package. So for example, if you've got a cone of yarn, that's just ready to wind. If you've got a tube, you might want to put it on a yarn stand or on a piece of wood with a nail on it, but it's ready to just wind right off. And there are also skeins that are ready to pull, either from the outside or from the inside. And those are all ready right as they come from the store. But there's another kind that takes a little preparation, and that is called a reeled hank or a reeled skein. And they look like this. They can be little or they can be big. But what they all have in common is that when you unwrap them, untwist them, it's a big kind of continuous loop. And when you've got this, it takes winding it into a ball to make it easily usable, whether you're knitting or weaving. So let me show you how to do that. You may have helped somebody in the past holding a skein like this while they wound it into a ball. And that does work if you've got somebody who can do that for you. But if you don't, there's some equipment that you can use that makes it very easy, called an umbrella swift. Now, an umbrella swift, it operates like an umbrella in that as you slide up this ring, the arms expand, and as the ring goes down, the arms contract. And so that makes it possible to put a variety of different sizes of skeins onto the swift. And so let's get this one on. Now here's the critical moment. This can make or break your experience here. These hanks are wound and then tied with a series of ties, at least one, but often 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. And it's important that when you put this hank on the swift, that you make sure that the yarn is consistently going under these ties in the correct way, because it's very possible as you're handling the skein to have a strand that goes backward across its tie. And if it's like that when you put it on the swift, it's going to cause a snarl and a headache when you are trying to wind it. So that's the critical step of this process, is look at every tie and make sure that the yarn is under the ties, not crossing over. But once you're sure you've got that ready, then you put it on the swift, and then raise up the ring so the arms go out. When it's under tension, it keeps the yarn from snarling and snagging, just keeps it more tidy. So expand the arms as much as you can to fit this hank. Now, the next step is you want to make sure that the yarn isn't twisted. And so, for example, you can see that twist. Let's even that out. And now it looks pretty good. So next, you're going to cut those ties. Different companies tie their hanks in different ways. Some use a contrasting color. Some use the 2 ends of the hank tied together. But whatever method, just go around the hank and remove all the ties. In this hank, the 2 ends were tied together, but then we have additional ties as well. All right, once they're all gone, take one of the ends, and I typically take a little moment to check and see which one is feeding off more easily, because one can be kind of coming from the back of the hank, and so one will feed off more easily than the other. So I pick the way that makes unwinding easy, and then I go to the ball winder. And this is just a plain plastic ball winder that clamps to a table surface. And this is what we use day in and day out at the yarn barn. Nothing fancy, but it does its job. And I think in the first 4 months of this year, we wound over 370 miles of yarn using this type of ball winder. All right, so you'll pass the yarn through this little eyelet, and then the core of the ball winder has these slits. And so you'll take the yarn and settle it down into the slit. And that holds it while you start winding. And then when the ball's done, this becomes the end of your skein, of a center pull ball. Then you turn the crank, and you can go either direction, whichever's more comfortable. And then you're winding. Now I can give you a couple of suggestions. One, if you've got a tail hanging down, that's going to wrap around the support for the swift, and you don't want that, so just tuck it up here on one of the arms. If you're winding something that's slippery, a rayon or a silk, or even a superwash merino, we find, if you wind slowly and very uniformly, and if you put a little tension on the yarn here next to the eye, that will help keep the yarn winding on evenly and smoothly and keep the ball from flying off of the ball winder. What I'm winding now is a cotton and linen blend, and I shouldn't have any trouble with that. But slippery yarns take a little patience and take a little bit of extra care. Now this ball winder holds 7 to 8 ounces, and this skein is an 8-ounce hank. So as we're getting close to the end of the hank, it's important to slow down the wind so that the ball doesn't fly off. And we should be able to get the entire hank on this. Here's the center of your ball, so you want to keep that out and then pull it off of the spool. Wrap this around, tuck it in, and now you're ready to use this.